Welcome back to Teen TV Deep Dive. Here in this channel, we talk about all things Teen TV. Today, we're going to be diving into the web series by Keke Palmer called Southern Fried Rice. It follows a Korean American girl, Coco, that was adopted by a black family, and she started her first year of college at an HBCU. I've seen a lot of backlash and just opinions that were formed online about the show, so I wanted to talk about it. But going into this, it made me really hesitant just seeing the negative reception that it was getting. But also, back when Keke Palmer first announced that she was going to be creating a show like this, I thought it sounded pretty interesting and original. And I was also pretty intrigued to watch it because I knew that Cordell Beckham from Love Island was going to be a part of it too. So I was pretty open to watching the show. I firstly wanted to talk about Coco. She is our main character. To me, she came off too cocky. She seemed that she was overly sure that she knew everything there was to know about the black experience. There's this one particular scene that stuck out to me is when all the people in like her residence hall or whatever were playing a board game. It was like related to black culture. And so her roommate Joy had called her out by saying, "What do you know about black culture and the black experience?" And Coco said, "I don't need to study black culture because I lived it." And for that to me, kind of just raised a little bit of an eyebrow. I wasn't sure about how to feel with that line in the scene. And overall, I feel like Coco came off as a caricature of someone who was immersed in black culture, just following stereotype after stereotype of what you would assume a person that was raised in a black family would seem like. So those reasons made me not really enjoy her as a character. And just overall, I didn't think that she had a personality. Even after watching this series, I don't know if she's an extrovert or introvert, if she's self assured or looks to others for validation. I feel like it's very important to have a character that has true personality traits, and that's how us as viewers are able to connect to the main character and want to root for them and their growth. I still just felt like there was something missing from Coco's character where I didn't feel like she should have been the main character. Like, I feel like there should have been something quirky or something interesting about her that makes it clear she is the main character of the story. We do see that Coco ends up meeting a group of friends, two guys and two girls, and she hits it off with them very well. And she is instantly attracted to one of the guys. I cannot remember his name. One struggle for Coco that we see is her struggling to get along with her roommate Joy. Like I said, they had that moment where they initially butt heads. She tried to call her out in front of everyone while they were playing the games. But for Joy, I just didn't like how she was chosen to be the antagonist. There are just so many stereotypes and negative traits that we see a lot of times being portrayed in media for people that look like Joy, just to add on to that by having her play the antagonist or the mean girl of the series, I felt was just distasteful. But I do think it was a good choice to make the roommate the antagonist. I do think that's a very common struggle that many college students go through. So, in that realm, it felt relatable for some. And we also see that Coco starts to vibe with another one of her friends named Steve. He's played by Cordell from Love Island. But they share a kiss, but for some reason, Coco nips it in the bud because she feels that she's leaning more towards the other guy. And we'll get more into that later. Now, this is where I feel like we get into the bread and butter of the series. There is this group on campus called Women of Excellence, and a lot of the girls that we've kind of seen throughout the show are interested in joining, and they go through this hazing process very similar to a sorority hazing process. And so during that time, they were forced to work together and to spend a lot of time with each other. And I was definitely more interested in this section of the series because I was already noticing myself pay more attention to the side characters and the side plots that were happening throughout the series more than I was enjoying Coco's storyline. And then we see that all of the girls who are interested in joining the group are going through their own individual struggles, trying to get to know each other and also put aside their differences to work together to get into the group. We see that the women of excellence, those students that are already in the club, are having their own struggles as well. We see that the RA treasure is stuck in a situationship with Mrs. Wright. She's like the it girl of the college who's still in the closet. So there's some messy things that happen with that. And Treasure feels frustrated that those feelings aren't being outwardly reciprocated from Mrs. Wright. So there's some frustration there. And I thought that storyline was also very interesting. We do see that Coco and Joy are forced to be together, and there's this moment where they are finally kind of reaching common ground, and Joy brings Coco to another campus event where it's a group of black women and they're sharing their experiences and just having a lot of meaningful dialogue. And afterwards, Coco was saying how, wow, like this is so insightful and these are conversations that need to be had more often. And Joy had to check Coco for a second because, like I said, Coco can be presumptuous, and Joy just said it flat out that Coco needs to understand that there's more to being black than just the social situations. Yes, Coco may be able to relate to a lot of black people because she was immersed in black culture growing up, and also her being Korean American and being the only one of that race within her family and school life does give her some struggles or experiences that may be similar to the other students at her HBCU. But I don't feel like she was acknowledging that there are some systemic privileges that Coco benefits from that the rest of her family doesn't. And that's what Joy was trying to get her to understand. And I think it landed well with Coco for the most part. Honestly, these whole episodes about the women of excellence and the process of them joining the club is what started to change my opinions about the show. I feel like I started off so caught up in the things I didn't like or the same issues I seen other people online point out about the show. I think that this is when I actually started to enjoy the show and just take in what I was getting at face value. Now, a little bit later in the series, there's a Halloween party coming up, and Steve and the other guy were in the studio because they're like wannabe SoundCloud rappers. And dude reveals that he doesn't actually like Coco. He just is really interested in getting with the Asian girl. He wants to cross that off of his list. And he doesn't have actual genuine feelings for her. And so Steve is upset by that. He goes to tell Coco because he secretly recorded what dude was saying in the studio. And Coco then calls him weird. And I partially do agree with Coco because she was saying, like, well, Steve, what do you want me to do from that? And I do understand what did Steve want Coco to do and to react by that. Like, I think he just wanted her to run into his arms and run away with him off into the sunset. But also, I don't know why Coco is being so weird around both of them. It does seem like there's some interest on both sides, but then also, she's not really speaking on how she's feeling with her connections that she has with both of them. But it's just a very confusing situation. Also, I think this is something important to note in this series is that they don't actually showcase Coco having any chemistry with either one of the guys. They do this really weird thing where the cameras just do slow mo, like googly eye montages of where there would normally be banter. So, like, for example, Coco and Dude went on a date. And so instead of trying to show them like opening up to each other or flirting back and forth, the camera just zooms in on them batting their eyelashes at each other. And it's so weird, but also kind of funny at the same time. So it's hard to try and decipher where Coco's feelings are at with either one of them. Now I wanted to get into what I liked about the show. I feel like by the end of the series, The show did correct some of its initial wrongs. Like going into the show, I was confused as to why Coco still chose to attend an HBCU, which they did address that. Her father had passed away, and that was the HBCU, Bright College, was his alma mater. And so Coco wanted to go there as a way to honor him. So I feel like that was a little bit more respectable and understandable. And again, Joy educating Coco on her privilege. Coco was acting kind of like a know it all at the beginning of the series, and having someone be honest with her and be real with her and saying that there's more to being black than just having family members that are black or just growing up in a predominantly black community, I think was very important and necessary conversation to be had. There is also a scene where Coco was in a cultural studies class, and they were dropping some gems about the importance of appreciation and education of different cultures. And I was listening to some of the things and I was like, yeah, this is so true. But I felt like it would have had more of an impact if the show actually followed through with what they were preaching. I feel like there was so much untapped potential with having Coco be from Korea and grow up being Asian American in a predominantly black space, where we could have done more about learning about Korean culture or Asian American culture, and that just didn't happen. And also, I would say redeeming Joy's character, while they did make some poor casting choices or just shaping her character overall, I do think that there is some work done to show that there's more to Joy than just being this quote unquote mean girl. I would also say that the show was entertaining. Just watching it, I was intrigued and interested as to what was happening on the screen. And also, like I said earlier, it's original. I've never seen a show with a similar premise. And I also didn't notice a whole lot of overused tropes that are in a lot of other popular TV shows. Now, I wanted to talk about what I didn't like about the show. One thing that I noticed was that there was a lack of character development. I know the show is short, but I just don't feel like anyone learned anything. Even those minor life lessons that characters can learn, I just don't feel like from episode 1 to the finale that there was any growth or lessons to be learned by any of the characters. I also didn't like the complete rejection of Coco's Korean identity. Like I was talking about earlier, I understand why she chose the college, but I think it would have been cool to either see them commit to the HBCU setting by Coco learning more about her dad, or maybe he left a legacy at Wright, and that would have been fun and interesting seeing her discover that and find ways to be closer to her dad, even though he's not here anymore. Or I think it would have been interesting to have shifted the setting to go into an ethnically diverse college. And Coco is there now trying to learn more about her Korean identity and finding Asian American community, while also trying to explore within that culture that she's not as familiar with, but also balancing that strong connection that she has to Black culture. I feel like that would have been pretty interesting too. But I get that there can't be much to be done about the setting of the show. So another suggestion that I have was that I think I would have preferred if the show was centered around the whole group of girls wanting to join Women of Excellence. I feel like I was more invested in everyone else's storyline. And even with that, focusing on just the whole entire group of girls, I think that Coco's story is interesting, but I don't think it should have been the focal point of the entire show. I think it just would have been so much more interesting to see like a ragtag group of girls. They're all vastly different with different dreams and aspirations, but they unite and come together to try and achieve this common goal of joining Women of Excellence. And throughout the journey, like they learn more about themselves and they become close. I feel like that would have been a much better premise than just focusing on Coco. Another bone that I have to pick with the show is that we see that Coco has this childhood best friend where she has to stay in her hometown and she's pregnant, but it's not what she wanted. And we don't really see the storyline being explored. I feel like it would have been so much better if the friend stayed there by choice. I feel like it was, again, following a harmful stereotype that she was forced or like trapped within her hometown, especially for it to not have any more development for the rest of the series. Now for my final thoughts is watching the show at face value, I was entertained. I had some moments where I laughed. I found it pretty messy and had some drama within it. But there was also some plot holes that made me a little bit confused too. But overall, I was entertained and the show had my attention. And I think that watching the show, knowing it was by Keke Palmer and kind of her brand and vibe that she has within the media, did make me expect more, especially just how it was sort of a weird choice to make the show be about Black culture and going to an HBCU. I think those are really great things, and it would have been an interesting premise for a show. But for all of that to happen, and somehow, some way, the main character still is not Black themselves, I found was kind of odd. But I will say, after watching, I definitely understand the frustration from both the Asian and Black community. We see that there's finally a show that's gonna center around an Asian character, and we don't address their actual Asian heritage, her Korean heritage, whatsoever throughout the show, or even her trying to take college as an opportunity to learn and explore. She also didn't take that either. So I definitely understand the Asian community's critiques about Southern fried rice, but also with the Black community, how can we have so much of the show take place in Black communities, Black spaces, and the main character not be Black themselves? It was seems like the show was a little bit of a disservice to both communities. So the frustration is definitely understood, and I do get why those communities may not be interested in the show or think that it's something worthwhile. With that being said, that's all for today's video. If you liked it, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more, as well as to follow me on my other social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, all at Teen TV Deep Dive Podcast for more. Thank you so much for listening to today's video. Bye.